Hi everyone and welcome to AWS Nordics Office Hours with me, Gunnar Grosch. I am a developer advocate here at AWS based in the Nordics. So this is the weekly show where you, our viewers, are able to join to learn something new about a topic and have your questions answered by me and by my guests. Every week I have one or multiple guests on the show, and this week is no different. This week we have, well, the previous host of the show. Isn't that right, Marcia?
It is. I started this show, I don't know, how long ago? Like a year?
A year,
more,
perhaps?
yeah. Wow.
So welcome to the show, Marcia.
Thank you, Gunnar, for having me. So yeah, I'm Marcia Villalba. I work in Gunnar's team. I'm also a developer advocate, but since I was hosting this show, I moved now to be a LATAM developer advocate. That's my region. I still live in Finland, so still very Nordic.
So if people don't know, what's your tie to Latin America then?
Well, I'm from Uruguay, so I'm native speaker Spanish. I'm originally from LATAM, so for me it's super fun to work with those communities in my own language. I've been creating a lot of content in Spanish, and it's kind of, I can be crazy and people don't look at me like, oh, you're too talkative. Oh, here, I'm normal.
So, well, I guess we'll see throughout this hour. But if you haven't watched the show before, you'll be able to ask any questions you might have in the chat. Just post your questions there and we'll try to answer them throughout the show. And don't worry if we don't get your questions straight away. We'll try to answer them when it's appropriate throughout the show. And as I mentioned, every week there is a specific topic for the show. And this week, we're going to talk about adding location data to applications, and specifically with Amazon Location Service. So, Marcia, I want to start from the beginning. What is location data and how do you see that is used in applications today?
Well, location data, it can be anything from putting a map in an application, from using the information that your, I don't know, mobile device have, like GPS coordinates, to do something with it, like show you moving in a map, or notifying some service about it. It can be using all this geographical data that we are so used to use nowadays in our mobile and web applications. For us, having applications that alert us when something happened, like a package is arriving and we get a notification. Well, there is many ways that we can do that. One way is to use location data to trigger those events, like the package arrived to some facility, and then we can send an event, and then poof, the packages, we get a notification in our email. Oh, the package just arrived. The same, I don't know if you get food delivery, you see that there is this little dot where the driver is. So, and it's drawn in a map, and that's location data. That app from the driver is sending all the time, every 30 seconds or something like that, where I am, and your app is reading that data. Is all event driven. Basically, the message is arriving, you're reading it, you're displaying it in a map, or then you're getting a push notification. The driver is downstairs. And how this know it's downstairs? Well, you have your address in place and the driver's location, and it knows that it's downstairs. So we are super used nowadays to have these location-aware applications.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think we see it more and more in more types of applications as well, that we're using location data to, as you mentioned, know where we are or where someone else is to help you. And it is convenient to have that data easily accessible.
It is. And there's many problems when you are a developer. I'm a developer for all my life, and I have built many applications with location data. And one of the challenges is to find a reliable trust provider for that data, because, well, it's not only displaying the map, but it's also sharing your exact location in some cases. So it can be very sensitive data. And that's kind of one of the things when you're starting to pick, like, what kind of provider I should go through. Well, not pick any random place on the internet that is offering you maps is a good place to go. Just be aware of the security implications, because today you might be showing a map tomorrow you might be doing more complex things, and in the future you might be sharing your customer location, and that will go through the provider. So for me, that's one of the most important things when you're building location-aware applications, that you are aware what that data is going for.
Yeah, and don't worry if you're watching this and thinking that it's just going to be me and Marcia talking for an hour. Don't worry, it's going to be like it usually is. We're going to walk you through a demo. Marcia is going to show you exactly how you can use this in your applications as well. So let's move on then to Amazon Location Service. That was launched quite recently.
Yeah, it was announced in re:Invent. So basically, since last year, December was one of the latest announcements in re:Invent on the last day, I think in the last keynote. So since then, you can use it, and it was free for use because it was a preview. And in June, it was announced to be general available, and that means that you can use it in production. And now it has a price attached to it. So it's like another AWS service. So the difference when you use location services than any other AWS service, that AWS is using a map provider, because as I mentioned, we need to get the maps and the location information from somewhere, and it can be a trusted provider or it can be a more shady provider. So we have picked, for now, we have 2 providers of maps, and it's S3 and here. And the cool thing of using these providers is that everything goes through the same API. So you could go and start using here directly from the hero provider, that is a map provider, and get a lot of the features. But then if you want to change your provider, you will need to change the interface, and then you will need to do all the connection to the AWS services. That's another cool feature by using this service. And when I mention features, for example, one of my favorite features is the integration with Event Bridge. I know you're a fan, Gunnar.
I am.
How you talk about Event Bridge in this place?
We haven't actually had any session specifically on Event Bridge yet. Let's just say yet. Yeah.
So Event Bridge is an event bus where most of AWS services will put messages in, and then you can read them from different places. So this is great because you can hook your mobile application or your web application that is location aware and send messages to the event bus that you can pick up later. So you can send push notifications, you can send emails, you can trigger Lambda functions, you can do all sorts of things that make your application super interactive. So that's something I really, really enjoy. And somebody is asking if this is about getting the location from the device GPS. So the location, it's depending on the API that you're using. So you will need a SDK from different devices. So we will get the location, for example, in your mobile from the device GPS that is connecting to Android or iOS SDK, and that will connect to the native OS system. So it will not be the IP location. That's a totally different thing. So for example, in web, unless you get the location from if your computer has a GPS sensor, if not, you will need to fake it somehow. But that's something to have in mind, that that is location based on GPS.
Yeah, and I think the next question is along the same line, talking about the IP. Can we get the user's location from the IP address using Amazon?
The thing is, Amazon Location doesn't get the location. It's used the SDKs that the operating system provides. So whatever in general is the GPS location, so that's something you pass to Amazon Location, and then you can draw that in a map, or you can do a search, or you can do a reverse search, basically based on GPS coordinates. You get an address, or you can do all kind of event messaging with it. So we are not going into your device and getting your location. That's something you need to do, whatever operating system or application you're using. So that's something. And the Flutter thing, I don't have a clue. I got that question the other day. I should Google it, but I should you should check the documentation if it's available, the SDK for Flutter. I know Amplify. We are going to use Amplify today for the demo, but also we are going to use the AWS SDK for the demo. So you need to have many pieces in place in order to make this work. So I don't know if the whole thing is ready for Flutter. So you should check on the website of the location services.
Right. Cool to see a lot of comments in the chat. Keep them coming. Keep your questions coming as well. So let's talk a bit more about features then. What are some of the features with the Amazon Location Service?
Well, there is multiple features nowadays with the location services. The first one is to show a map. So that's kind of the most basic feature that we want in our applications nowadays. Wait a second, that I lost your face in my browser, and it's very weird to talk to nowhere. That's life one. So the first feature is the display the map. So for that, we are getting the provider's map that will be doing the drawing of the map, because it's not as simple to draw a map as you would think. We are so used to having maps because most of our operating systems in our mobile applications are using Google Maps, Apple Maps, but that is very expensive to build a very accurate map with all the roads, with all the information. So we are getting those maps from here and Esri. The second one is the places that is called in the documentation, but basically it's the search of addresses and search of GPS coordinates. So either you pass an address and you get GPS coordinates back, or then you pass a GPS coordinate and you get an address back. So this is cool if you want to search for the airport. You can type, I don't know, what is the airport in Stockholm, Arlanda, and then you will get the GPS coordinate for Arlanda that then you can draw in the map. But this also might return you a list of results. So for example, if you type for your closest, for McDonald's, you will get, I don't know how many McDonald's there in the world. So you need to be aware that sometimes the results can be one, or it can be a long list, and that's something your application that needs to manage. And when you do the reverse search, that is basically you pass an address and you get GPS coordinates. In that address, you need to be very specific because it can match multiple GPS coordinates as well. So the third feature is routing. So basically, you can find the route between point A and point B, and you can do many steps in the way. So this is very handy if you're building like a delivery system, or you want to find like the route between a place and another, just to go there. So one of the curious things of routing when I was writing about this service is that they added a feature that you can decide which mean of transport you're going. If you're walking, you're going by car, or if you're going by truck. And if you're going by truck, you can specify the size and the weight of your truck, because it's quite common that trucks get stuck in bridges.
Yeah.
And that's kind of funny because it's like, oh my God, but it makes sense because, well, trucks are huge and sometimes bridges are not high enough. So this has a feature to give you routes that are kind of appropriate for trucks. And then we have a couple more features that are very interesting. That is the tracking and the geofencing. So let's start with geofencing. Basically, a geofence is an area that you draw in a map, like delimit an area. It can be, I don't know, a shopping center, an airport. You can have multiple geofences in a geofence collection. So you can have, I don't know, all the shopping centers in your city or all the airports in the world, whatever. And this is a feature that you can connect it with tracking. And whenever a device comes in or out of the geofence, you can enable this messaging part that I love a lot. That basically will be sending a message to Eventbridge, and then you can capture that message. So you can know when things are going on in your application. So this is very important features, and I am going to show you a little bit in the demo as well if we get time.
Yeah, geofencing is a very cool feature to use, and it's something that I also think that we see more and more applications use today as well in different ways, knowing when, for instance, you're reaching a specific area rather than a specific address.
Yeah, and this is pretty cool. For example, you can do many things. One thing is for marketing. So if you have customers that download the app and, for example, you want to send a push notification when they are in your store, you don't need to track their location all the time. You just basically have the mobile app, send check to that API. Are they inside the geofence? Are they inside the geofence either? And when they get a yes, then this trigger the whole event system, and you get a push notification in that client application. Like, hey, you're in our store, this store, welcome, you have a 10% discount, welcome, we are so happy to have you here. And the user was like, oh, the device is tracking me. Well, not really.
Very cool. And you mentioned a last one, or perhaps you mentioned parts of it as well, tracking.
Yeah, tracking and geofencing are very intertwined, because tracking is basically you can send the exact coordinates. For example, if you want to track the device specific position, you can do that. For example, if you have a truck company, a delivery company, your trucks are your own, so you can track where they are in the map. So they can send specific information, and that's good. But then you can also know where your customers are with the geofencing as well, if they're inside or they're outside. And that's something, it's a more soft tracking that is great for people, because you don't want to know where all the people are. That's very sensitive. But if they're inside your supermarket, or inside your airport, or inside your office, or inside whatever, then it's a more bigger area, and that can allow for more interesting functionalities without really needing to disclose a lot of personal information.
Right. All right. So we're 16 minutes into the stream, and we still haven't shown any code, any examples.
There's questions.
Yeah. So this is uncommon for the Nordics Office Hours, to be honest. But it's just
you should
because
invite me more often.
Yeah, this is because no. Well, the comments weren't uncommon. Sorry about that, but that we still haven't shown any code. That's uncommon.
Okay, so let's do that.
But I guess it's because you are so engaged into the topic. I think that's just great. So time to show something, Marcia, to show an example of how we can use Amazon Location Service.
Yes. So I will show you a little bit on how I build this application. I will start it kind of from scratch, but if we don't get to finish today, don't worry. We'll send a link where all the code is, all the videos are, so you can go and check them yourself later. But I think it's kind of interesting to see the thing. I will show the code. Here we are. So the first thing is, this is a service page. So here you can see all the things I explained you. And the next thing I will do is I will go to my Visual Studio Code. I created a basic React application, so I can start, but I have not done much than that. So the first thing I will do is to initialize Amplify. So then we can see this in action. So for doing this demo, we will be building kind of delivery system where we will have branches. For example, for our delivery, how you call it, like if we were UPS or DHL, that we have these little branches where our packages will arrive, and then we will notify customers when a package arrives to those places so they can go and pick it up. And then we'll have a nice web page where customers can find the different branches, and they can find a route from whatever address they input into that branch, so they know how to get there. So for that, we are going to use Amplify, because Amplify supports very nicely the location services. They have added, still not a production, so that's what I'm not showing it, the category for Geo. So that's something you might want to look at when it becomes, I'm installing some dependencies because I didn't do my homework and install everything before.
Just keep talking.
But I will keep talking. So there is this application category that is called Amplify Geo that will do a lot of things for you, but that's not production ready. So I like to show what you can really do in your applications. Very simple, and you will see the code is very easy. This is done with React. So you can do it with React, you can do it with Angular, Vue, and whatever other web frameworks are available. You can do it with iOS, you can do it with Android. I still don't know if you can do it with Flutter. So I owe that person an answer to that question, or he can Google for it. Because Flutter has been announced in Amplify some few months ago, so I don't know if it has full support for everything. So check that out. So then we are going to be using also a library that is quite nice. That is the Amazon Location Helper. And that's also available for web. I don't know if there is a similar one for mobile development. I'm not a mobile developer, sorry. And that library will help us to do the calls to the service, because the AWS SDK that we are also going to use, it's a little bit rough on the edges with the location services. It asks you for a lot of questions. Then when you add this helper, it makes your connection way easier. So that's something we need. Then another thing we need, I know I'm saying that we need a million things, but it's a very complex application when you think about what you're doing with so little code. So that's what I'm getting all the helps from all these libraries to build this thing. And the last bit that you need is a map drawer. So you need a library that knows how to draw maps in your web applications. And for that, I'm going to do Map Libre. That is an open source project that allows you to draw maps in web applications. And because I'm very lazy, I'm using another layer that is the React Map GL that will help me to build even easier maps. So those are all kind of the libraries you need. I know there are many, but when you start combining them, they become very, very simple because they do all the work for you. So I don't like to code unnecessary code.
But that's why we have dependencies. We don't want to write any unnecessary code. We just stitch things together.
Yeah, and I think it's nice at least to show you the beginning of a kind of an app that you can really do, and more than just a basic hello world of me drawing a map in the thing. So that's what I like to add all these dependencies so we can really build something together. So the next thing I'm going to do is to use this Krakow. And Krakow, if you don't know, it is a helper for building kind of create React apps. It helps you to modify it. And I'm just changing one dependency there that comes out of the box of the location service, that is to use the Mapbox GL, and I want to use an open source component that is Map Libre. So that's the only thing that Krakow is doing. And all this code is available in GitHub. I will put you the link. You will find all the steps that I'm doing as well. So you don't need to follow step by step now, but if you want to do it at home, I will be able to show you everything. So another cool thing that Amplify provides in the picture is the availability of using authentication. So now you can put all these location resources behind an, I don't know, a sign-up page. So I will add authentication in Amplify, so then we can basically get that signing page. And then we just push everything to the cloud. And I have been not doing live things for so long that it's just, I need to get, I'm so used to recording and editing, and I don't have to worry about time. You know?
No worries. And hi, everyone in the chat. We see you and we see your questions.
But
and
they can ask questions now. They can ask, because I want to answer the questions. The code is available in GitHub.
So let's just take some. I think you explained that early on. Let's just take that as well for newcomers. Is this a Google Maps alternative from AWS?
Well, it's different, but yes, you can use it as an alternative, but it provides different things. Google Maps are their own provider of maps, so they own the maps themselves, and they own the features that they provide on top of the maps. With this, the provider is Esri here, and maybe in the future more, or maybe in the future you can bring your own. That's something that is not available. But then you have all the AWS features, so it's kind of an alternative. So different, but
and it's not aimed at the end user, so end users won't open up Amazon location services to find an address.
No. This is something to build applications, so use it for your own development of your next delivery food service, or making your trucks not to get stuck under bridges. But it's for developers. This is super developer focused.
And what about offline support then, Marcia?
Offline support, I don't think it's available yet. So I think that's something that maybe it's in the pipeline. I don't know. but it always happens with AWS products. The more people ask for things, the more you get things. So Amplify has support for a lot of things offline, but maybe this is something coming with the new Geo. I don't know, but I will be super exciting to see the offline support. So no.
All right, and then
I will post a link in the chat for all of you to find the GitHub repo and all the info I'm sharing. So if I forget, then there it is.
here we go. So how to calculate if a vehicle is out of the established route with Amazon Vacation Service?
Well, there is no way to have that comparison with location service. So you will get the route, and then you will get where your vehicle is. Then your application is the one that needs to do the magic. So that's something location service doesn't provide. Maybe it's a feature coming. I don't know.
But with the different features that we talked about before, you have the building blocks to build that yourself.
Exactly. So that's something you can do pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward as it's to compare routes. but you will be able to do that. And also you can do that server based, because the device can send the location to the backend, and you can calculate the route on the backend, and you can do that processing on your backend with no problem. I will be showing today a lot of front-end stuff, but a lot of things can be done in the backend as well with lambdas, and all these are. I can see half of my screen because there is some StreamYard thing in the way, so I don't know what I'm typing, so sorry for that. Yeah.
Can you press the hide on that?
I don't know. There it is. Fine. Oh, yeah. I didn't modify the packages. I'm terrible at live coding. Why it doesn't find the Krakow start. That's what I like to do recordings,
Yep.
I imagine you are a super expert now by having guests all fighting with the live coding.
Oh yeah, that's common, but I think it's good for people to see as well that it is live and things happen, and we don't always nail everything on the first try as well.
No, and I'm talking, so I'm not really paying attention. I'm just trying to do things and try to entertain you all. So
yeah,
I might have not installed that dependency. Let's see. I should have installed everything in the beginning before joining this thing, but
no worries.
Life sometimes is you don't think things ahead,
No.
Let's bring the thing, and this is basically the starter app. So doesn't do anything. We just need to create an Amplify user, and after here, then I have all the setup done, and we can start adding them up. 30 minutes in. Yay, Marcia. Very good. Is there some other questions while we wait for this to load and for me to kind of create an account and validate it and all that?
Well, there's more questions around routes. How can it optimize delivery routes?
Well, it's used the optimization that I mentioned that you can do if it's walking, if it's a car, it's a truck, the weight of the car, truck. You can also pick if there is kind of stops in the middle. You can decide at what time you're going. So if you don't put anything, it will just decide a time that's now. If you put kind of a time, then it will optimize it more. Why this is not loading? So those are the basic type of optimizations you can do.
I'm guessing optimizing of delivery routes means to have multiple delivery addresses.
Yes,
and find
you can add, I think, until 20 stops in the middle. So a start, an end, and then all the points in the middle. So that's something you can add with no problem. So let's create an account. Sorry.
No worries. If you just joined us, this is the AWS Nordics Office Hours.
And it's
And my
Marcia.
name is Gunnar Grosch, and I'm joined by
Fighting with
Marcia
influence.
today. Marcia is fighting today with...
As always, I'm always
Well,
fighting. That's
and
kind of my state.
we're looking at how to add location data to your applications
Good.
using Amazon Location Service.
So now we are starting. We are able to go to the location service side and create our first map. So let's do that. So you find these in the AWS management console. You can create all these with CloudFormation, but I like to show it. It's more visible. So you can type location and it will take you there. So that's good. And then there you will have all the features that I mentioned in the side. They are all displayed. And I think we are going to use them all if we have time. If we don't, then you can check the videos I share with you and the links and all the demos. So let's create a map. And you can see kind of here with some information on how to use it. So maybe here you can find the information for Flutter. That may be the right place. And then to create a map, basically just go here and put a name, something very original like my map. And then here you can define what kind of map you want to display. So you have all the ones that Esri and here provide. I always like this one because it's very bright, but there is also this type of image, like satellite image. And then there is this kind of 3D maps. So that's something that is good. Then it has a free tier, so you should check the pricing plan and how the free tier works. It has quite a lot of free tier for playing around. But if you're using these for real, I will really recommend you to check the pricing plan because it's not as straightforward as one imaging. So go and check it. And then you need to check this box because this is sending some information to a third party that is the map provider. So you need to acknowledge that, you know. So that's it. That's how you create a map in this thing. The next thing you need to do is to give permissions to your Amplify application to access the map. I don't know if you're aware, but in AWS, everything that is born without any permission. So we need to do Amplify auth console. I do it the other way around. It needs to be Amplify. I think it was right that way. Yeah, okay. Identity pool. And then this will open exactly the identity pool of Amplify that Amplify created for this. If you don't know, identity pool is the one that is giving the temporary credentials to your users of your application. So Cognito user pools is where I created my account. And the identity pool is the one that has the credentials for those users. So here what we need to do, and this is one of the hardest part, is to remember that name. Because we need to locate it in the IAM roles to give permission. So I will leave it open as a secondary tab because I will need to come back to it. It's called Amplify Nordics Location Base. And we want to give it to the auth role. So this is the role that has the permissions to do things in our AWS account. And in this case, to show the map because we want to show the map. So let's go here. I don't know if it's super small, but I will find this. And then it was Nordics, Amplify Nordics. Oh, here. Auth role. So this is the role. And here we need to create a new inline policy. So the inline policies are in that repo that I share you. You can copy paste them. So, you know, if you make a mistake, and I will be copy pasting them as well. It's JSON, and you can also build it yourself, but it's easier for copy paste. And we will add many of these through the demo. We will have a get map, one to able to do search, one to do able to add the geofences. So everything that you add in your application needs to have permissions. Then the region in my case is Ireland, so I need to type EU West. I never know the names of the regions. EU West, yeah. When I'm not putting the pressure of people watching me, this is super. And then your account ID that you can get from here, plop, plop. And the name of the map that we just created, that is my map. And this will give permissions to your application to see the map. If you don't do this, nothing will work. Then put a name, and it doesn't matter the name because it's just for displaying here. So now basically we can go and do the code, and I can show you the code that I'm using to draw the map, and you will see that it's very, very simple. So I copy paste my code. Everything in my repos are built in the same way. You will find the README file with all the instructions, and then you will find a folder that's called base with all the things that I copy paste in all the different steps. So you can do the demo yourself in your own user groups and use it with no problem. So app.js. Let's make this a little bit big so you can see something. And basically, this application doesn't have much than a map. So if we refresh it, let me refresh it so you know what you're seeing. It will basically have a header and a map. And this map is showing Montevideo because why not? That's my city. So how we do that? Well, this is the header where the title is. Then we have these libraries that I told you that help me to draw the React Map GL and the Map Libre. That one is the drawing library of the maps, and the other one is the helper library to use that Map Libre. This is configured with Amplify, so everything from Amplify is here. And then we have the Amazon location services that will help us to do the authentication of the request to the maps. So I will show you that in a second. So this is a React app, and I'm getting, when the application loads, the credentials from Amplify. And then I'm also getting this create request transformer from that helper. And that is that was something that if you don't use the location helper, you will need to build yourself. That is a piece of 20 lines that basically is just copy pasting. So that's why it's super handy to use this library. And what this does is do the authentication. Whenever how these maps drawers works is that whenever you are requesting, I think they're drawn by sprites or something like that, maps, you need to have a sign kind of call to be able to draw that, and that function is basically signing that call to be able to retrieve that piece of map from the location service and draw it in your map. So it's using your credentials, as you can see, and it's doing some magic. And then you basically grab that request transformer that you just created and you put it inside your map. And this is the map component that basically doesn't have anything. You just set the viewport, that means where you want your map to load to, in this case, Montevideo. This is the request transformer that is doing the authenticated calls to the location service, sprite by sprite, or however maps are drawn, but it's not like you get a file, you get pieces of maps in kind of ways. Then you have the map name, and that's kind of it to draw a map. So it's a very, very simple thing after you have all the right libraries in place to draw the map. And you can move around, you can zoom in, you can do whatever you want in this map. So that's kind of the first step.
There's a question about how accurate the maps are.
The maps are good. Esri and here are real like providers of GPS. For example, all those GPS devices that you have in cars are coming from this type of map provider. So these are like super professional maps that you can be very accurate, and you can read in each of the maps. When you create a map, a lot of information if you know about maps. On all the specifications of each of the map types. So the satellite image has some specific information on when they refresh the images and what you can expect, and the same on each of the other maps. So that's something these map providers are huge, are very professional, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the devices, if you have a car and you're using like GPS thingy, they're using these providers, and the same with like a lot of public transport, they have this GPS attached and they are using these providers. So
very common to see the here watermark on most maps.
Exactly.
All right, so another question, which perhaps isn't Amazon location service directly, it's rather building something on the side. If you want to send a voice notification to a driver about a change in a route, what AWS service should I use, or rather, would you choose, Marcia?
For reading something out loud, I think Poly is the service that you need to send some text to, and it will read it out loud. But you will need to figure out maybe in the Lambda function that the row change, and then you will need to send a text to some Poly API that it can read that aloud. So yes, that's very doable.
All right, so what's next then, Marcia?
Next
we
is,
have our map.
Good. Now we have our map, and the next thing we want to do is to find the different branches of this imaginary delivery thing. So I will be using as branches different shopping centers that are there in Montevideo, because why not? And I will be integrating this with GraphQL, because I told you I want to build something a little bit more fun than just a hello world. So it's kind of what I'm going to do if I can find the demo here. So let's do terminal. So I will add a small GraphQL endpoint with an API and basically the definition of what a branch is. So that's kind of what we are going to do. I will sign it with the Cognito user pool, and I will just paste my schema in here. So I don't want to split the schema now. There, so I can see my whole thing. So again, in the base file, you will find the schema. So here it is, and I will paste it now in the in the place that Amplify just created for that. So if you go to Amplify backend to the API, there is the schema, and you just paste it there. And I will just deploy this, and then I can explain you a little bit what just happened. So this is deploying, and basically this will be creating a branch. It will create a Dynamo table. It will create a AppSync API that will have the Dynamo table, a place where I can put all my branches, and my branches basically just have a name, a longitude, and a latitude, and then an ID. And that's very, very simple, but that's a very common use case with location data, that you have your own location data and you want to integrate it in your applications. So I want to show you how you can draw that location data, and you can then use that location data in different parts of your application. This part is really not location service specific, like the service itself, because this is AppSync. But I think it's good to see how the whole ecosystem integrates super easy to each other, and how if you have a GPS coordinate somewhere else, you can draw them in your map, and then you can create geofences, and then you can notify users, like how the whole thing comes together. So that's what I'm showing you, the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's typically how you'll probably be using Amazon Location Service. It's just one of the building blocks in your application.
Exactly. So that's what I like to make these demos a little bit more interesting, that just show you. This is a map, and then here you have a box. Type your name, search for it, it will appear in the map, and that's a totally valid demo. But I've been playing with this for too long. So if you start, if we have this conversation in March, then I will give you that demo. By now, I have played a lot with this, and I'm very excited about this service. So the next thing we are going to do when this finish loading is I will go to AppSync, and I will add these branches. I will add them manually from the AppSync console, because I don't want to create an interface to add branches. This is out of that demo. And in general, in my case, we have 5 branches, and that's enough. But you could create an interface to add those branches. But I will just do it from the AppSync endpoint directly. Is there any question before I jump in there?
No new questions right now, I believe. But please add your questions. Marcia is here to answer them.
I'm happy to answer questions. If I know the answer, I will answer. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you to Google.
Yeah.
So here is my API, the one that just was created. I go to queries, and then I need to log in. I hope this is the endpoint. Login. Hope this one. The problem is I will never know because I always use the same name and password for my test endpoint. So we'll never know. So let's run this one and see if there is something. No, let's go for it. We will know soon. And what I will be running, it's available on the here in the base again. So if you need it, you can find it. Where it is? It should be here. Here. I think is that one? No, it's not. Well, okay. I will check that is available in that base if it's not, because this is a very boring mutation full of GPS coordinates that I don't think any normal human needs to remember this, because each of the mutations looks like create a branch with this name, with this latitude, with all these decimal points. So you don't want to do that. So I will just run the 5. They run very fast. And I'm pretty sure there is a way to run them all together, but I have not figured out that yet. But that's how you get all the 5 branches in your API. And the next thing I'm going to do is just modify my code, and you will see that something happened. What happened? I copied half of it. I have this font so zoomed in that I cannot see anything. So what just happened here? Let me show you, because you want to see code, and I don't want to type code. So the first thing that happened is I created a component called Branchlist. So this is basically creating a list of all the branches. In this case, they're just showing the branches, and then I'm just displaying that component in the application. So for now, I'm not doing anything with those components, those things. So now I want to show them in the screen, and for that, there is where the location part comes into place. So I will need to have a data, a coordinate data, and that's kind of so I will create a new folder called data, and there I will put a huge JSON inside. And that JSON, I created it from a website called Geoio, and you can use it as well, JSON.io, sorry. No, I don't want to do that. And here you can draw your own geofences and spaces in maps. And this returns a format that is the format that is a standard that you can download. And then you can use it as geofences or things to draw in the map, as you will see in a second. So that's what I'm getting here in data. There is a massive JSON here. So basically, this JSON has little drawings of these 5 different branches in a geographical area, because it's not a point, it's a small area. So that's what it is. And I will use exactly the same file when I upload my geofences. So that's something that is kind of nice. You define everything once, and you can use it in your application to draw, or in your location service to get the geofence. So now I want to draw this in the map. And for drawing that, I'm using that Map Libre feature that has the capability to draw things in map. So now you can see that there is these blue dots in the map. So these are the different stores, branches, and you can see that everything is clickable. So this is not a location-based feature of the service itself, but it's how you can use location data in your applications to make them better. So you have a map, and now you can draw on the map, and now you can configure it with GraphQL, with whatever you have in the server. If you add a store tomorrow, it will appear automatically. So this is pretty neat. And the code for this is very, very simple, because everything is done by these libraries for you. So here we have the list of these JSONs elements that I just imported. And then I'm using that, I'm creating a data layer that is called in this Map Libre, that is blue, and it has a little edge, and it's filled with some color. And that I'm just basically passing it to my map here. I just say, hey, this is the shopping centers list. And the type is a GeoJSON. That is what I just downloaded. And the data is this JSON file that I downloaded from the GeoJSON and painted with this information. And with that, you can draw, and you can add points, you can add lines, you can, and in the similar way, we'll draw our roads and we will draw everything. So let's add routing because we only have 10 minutes. And then you will see a little bit more of these things in action. So for routing, what we need is to add a router. That is the one that is calculating the routes, and also a search index, because we will ask people to input their address and not their GPS coordinate, because this is a web application. We don't have the GPS coordinates of people, so we don't want to put people in that situation. So we will ask them for an address. So then we need to convert that into a GPS coordinate. So let's create a place index, and that's basically the search mechanisms that there is in maps, that you can basically translate a GPS into an address and an address into a GPS. You can do search and you can do all kind of things. For that, you create a place index, you put a name into it, and I will call it my search index. And then you pick a data provider, because that kind of search and reverse search are made by these data providers. So I just pick the default one.
Let me just ask a question in the meantime. Sure. The question is if it's important to know how these libraries work internally to use them effectively in the apps.
Well, I think like everything in life, if you're doing this and putting it in your customer's hand, I would recommend you to run inspections in the libraries. There are open source libraries that are very widely used, but you might have regulations in your company that forbid you to use these libraries. So I would recommend you always, whenever you're using any libraries in the internet, it's not that you need to know exactly how they work, but you need to understand what you're putting inside your applications from a security perspective. And also, like, maybe your application becomes very slow, or you're like, so I think it's always a good practice to know what you're using. You don't need to build it yourself, but have be aware of what you're using. So that's something I would recommend everybody. You don't need to know how they work. You can use them, but you're putting this inside your applications. You're using this to manage sensitive data from your customers. So it's always good to do the research. And in the same way we created the search, we create a route calculator. And you can see here that there is not really a lot of configuration you need to do. It's just picking the provider and that's it, because the components are so specific themselves that you don't need to do much. So the next thing we want to do is to add another inline policy. So I will edit this and I will add one for search and one for routing, because our application doesn't support that. So that's something you want to make sure that you have the permissions in place. If not, then things will not work. Copy paste is my friend. So it was my search index. Did I put that name? And then we have the other one. That is this calculate route. So it's my route calculator. My route calculator. You can do all this with CloudFormation if you are brave enough, and if you have infrastructure as code. I will totally recommend you to do this by infrastructure as code, because it's easier to duplicate and to have in multiple environments. Building this by hand is fun for the demo. But it's not the right way to do it. I'm just showing you this way because it's more visible. If I will be deploying a CloudFormation thing, it will be very boring.
Yeah. I'm posting the link to the repo once again.
Good, so go for it. So now I have the free things, and then I need to install 2 more dependencies. Sorry, guys. But these dependencies are quite cool. The first one is one to make a React form. And the other one is this called turf, that allow us to do some playing with the routing and allow us to whatever location service returns when you do routing is a standard format for returning routing, but it's very hard to draw. So in order to make it easier for me to draw it and to the application to understanding, I'm using this library called Turf that is the one that will help me with that. So you will see that. That I'm doing. And then when I'm building the routing, I'm creating one more component that is the route component, that is the one from to, and that's basic thing. Then I'm doing routing helpers to put a lot of functionality that kind of adds a lot of noise in my app.js. And then I'm modifying the app.js with the routing, but the app.js will have very small amount of routing because I'm using this helper and this component. So that's kind of what you will see in the changes. And then after that, we will have the whole application working. The only thing missing will be the events part, but that's something I let you to discover because it's the most fun part for me, and gives you a lot of play of what you can do and what you and how you can play with this service, because this is when the whole backend and front end start integrating together. So I will show you what it looks, and then we jump into the code. If my copy paste will work, it will be amazing, but I don't know why my life is so hard today. So let's go to what you will see, and then I will show you the code step by step. So here is what you will see. Now it's loaded, now it's loaded, now it's loaded. Good. So you will see the component here from search. Here for searching, I recommend you to put a very clean address. I have not gone into the whole validation of address and how you do the reverse search. So put a very clean address with the city, so it's easier for this to work. You can improve this by fine-tuning and reading documentation, but this is a demo. Then I created a drop-down, so you can pick the branch where you want to go to, and then you can find your way, and this should draw something in the screen. Find a way, don't explode in my face. Or maybe yes. Why?
Live demos for you.
Oh yeah, I could do it recorded, but it's so much thrilling. Start my day by. Oh yeah, I don't have permissions. How is that possible? Did I misspell something? That's the error you will get if you don't have permission. So I got a 403 when trying to do a reverse search because it seems that I didn't give the right permissions to the right thing. So get map, route calculator. Oh, here you can see I copy the same thing. So that's why permissions are very important. You can see it in action. Why? How many times I have it? No. I copy paste something twice. Search place for index, my search index. This is how you will check it, that you have the right permissions. I will go and verify that the name is right. My search index, here it is. Live coding.
Yeah.
I think that's right, but well. Let's try again.
No rush. We've got a minute.
Yeah, well, it works, believe me. If you copy paste the right things in the right place, it works. And you can draw. And let's see. I'm sweating. I always get very nervous in live coding. That's what I do, YouTube videos, you know. Okay, let's try again. And put a valid address. You will find also the valid address in the repo, so you can put one, because I'm pretty sure all of you don't know, okay, I have something wrong in my roles and I'm not smart enough to read it while coding. But what you will see is that it draws in the screen, so you can go and check it in my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I posted a link to your blog post with a lot of more resources, so do check those out. We are running out of time, but thanks a lot, Marcia, for joining us. And very cool demo.
If it works, as always, live demos. But this is all working in the videos because I have the magic power of editing. So there you can see the whole thing. The code is all available for you to try it. So there is no black magic. And yeah, sometimes.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Ciao.